Good morning, everyone, and welcome. On behalf of Hexacup, I'd like to extend warm welcome and thank you for taking time to join us for today's webinar. The next 12 months of Copilot, a CIO's roadmap to an AI-driven enterprise. I'm Revati Kumar, your host for this session. Before we start, a quick note. If you have any questions during the session, please write them in the chat. Our experts will answer you via email. As organizations move beyond AI experimentation, CIOs are under constant pressure to translate AI investments into measurable business outcomes. Microsoft Copilot is, of course, evolving rapidly. It's introducing new capabilities that are reshaping how employees work, collaborate, and make decisions. But the real challenge no longer is whether to adopt AI, but how to govern it, how to scale it responsibly, and maximize its value across the enterprise. In today's session, we'll explore the trends shaping the future of Microsoft Copilot, the strategic priorities CIOs should focus on over the next 12 months of adoption, and practical approaches to driving secure, scalable, and value-driven AI adoption. Whether you're planning your Copilot strategy or looking to optimize your existing investments, today's discussion will provide actionable insights to help you navigate the next phase of enterprise AI. We are delighted to have Sai Charan with us today with extensive experience in Microsoft technologies, cloud transformation, and enterprise AI. With that, it's my pleasure to hand over the session to Sai Charan. Sai Charan, over to you.
Thanks, Revati. Thanks for the background. Hello, everyone. Such a pleasure meeting you all today. And thanks for taking your time to attend this webinar. So just to set the stage here, right? So what I got today is I'll quickly talk about where Microsoft Copilot is heading, a quick snapshot about where they are from a numbers perspective, and then I'll also focus on a roadmap of how can you start off with your journey with Copilot, and then what would be your 90 days plan and 120 days plan as well. And then I'll also specifically touch on how CIOs should address the practical challenges moving from an experimental stages to a completely business value realization of AI, right? So this is what we're going to focus today. Let me go ahead and move to the next slide. There you go. So where we are today, right? 2026 is the inflection point. So what I was doing is, I was reading an earnings report yesterday from Microsoft. If you look at the numbers there, right, it's the paid Microsoft seats is 20 million. Now it has crossed it to 30 million, which means that there is constantly an adoption in AI, specifically on the Copilot side, right? So which is good. And then if you look at the yearly growth, I would say, they're crossing yearly like 15x from a year-on-year growth, moving from a licensing perspective or also from an adoption standpoint. And also, Fortune 500 companies are heavily investing in AI, and the revenue is crossing close to 40 billion right now. And the adoption is increasing day by day because AI is moving from a stage where it's moving from an individual productivity to an organizational transformation, right? So that is how companies are looking at. And if you ask me, right, who would be the winners in next 12 months, they wouldn't be the one who has most licenses, right? It would be the companies who has a clear vision and a clear roadmap and a clear model for AI, right? So they would be the winners there. That's from my standpoint. But this is the report which I got from Gartner from the web. Let me move on to the next slide. So the hard truth, right? Why do most Copilot programs stall, right? So we have been working with a lot of our customers and a lot of our departments inside each of our clients, right? So what they do is, most customers and most companies, right? They roll out Copilot license, and then they never look back, like how do they are actually performing? What is it they have to do? What is the governance in place? What are all the guardrails? There is no proper plan and there is no proper framework as well, right? So that's why most Copilot stall, because they don't have a better vision of how, what the AI would actually help them in terms of the daily business process, right? So that's how we are helping our customers as well. If you look at some of the pain points, right, I would say We have to start off with the named owner, right? Because someone has to take up the responsibility. That's why we are empowering leadership to have a better, governance from where you need to have an executive sponsorship from a leadership level, where they have to have a driving force, where they have to set a stage in terms of assigning a right team members to the governance. We would be seeing in detail in the next slides, but from a high level, it has to be a ownership from a leadership level. And then second major point is the governance gap, right? Because we see a lot of shadow AI using across the companies. So whoever we talk to, I mean, there is some sort of a shadow AI happening inside the company, right? So that's where the data leak and data breach happens. So this is something which has to be taken seriously, and that's what we were evaluating completely in terms of having a governance board and then having a governance and guardrails and policies and procedures. Everything has to be set to make sure the boundaries are clear. Right. And third is the data exposure, right? I mean, when it comes to AI, it is all about data, right? If you have a good data, you would get a good response. If you have a bad data, it's going to spit you a bad data, right? So that's how the data has been very important when it comes to AI. And even from an exposure standpoint, the data has to be secure and governed so that, it doesn't feeds the information to the public LLMs, right? And if we follow all this, I mean, the ROA ambiguity, right? I mean, that's where most of the CIOs actually face a problem with because they don't have a clear vision where it has to go to the next level or even before starting off the Copilot journey, right? So that's where we are helping a lot of our customers in terms of making sure they have a right adoption plan and to a framework where they can utilize to move from a Copilot starting stage to a business value realization stage. So this is the hard truth. This is why the most Copilot program stalls. And then let's move on to the next slide. If you look at this slide, right? So what is coming? If you ask me, right, I mean, I've seen a lot of companies where they actually directly go to one stage to another stage. That means that they actually adopt to creating an agents initially, right? That's how we should not shift, right? If you look at this one, right, this is the evolution. We are moving from a stage where we use Copilot as a chat just for the prompting, for the generating content, images, and all that, right? So now, if you look at the future state, right, Microsoft is bringing up a lot of autonomous things into the picture now, right? Couple of things, if you look at here, is one is the Copilot Cowork, right, which is a completely autonomous agent where it can execute tasks within a simple prompt, which can actually complete an entire workflow, right? But we have to be cautious about the tokenization realization of how the Copilot Cowork is working. So that's how we are helping a lot of our customers in terms of how can they have the token value realization of their projects, right? So that should be a key priority. And second is where the Agent 365, which is something new, where you will have a centralized dashboard where you can monitor your agents in terms of their health, security, what is the cost, what is the tokens they're burning, some sort of a centralized dashboard there, right? And the model choices. There are a lot of models coming into the market right now. Every day there is a new models coming up from Anthropic, from Google, also from ChatGPT. There are a lot of models coming in, right? So we have to be cautious about which model better performs for which task so that we can have a better outcome as well. But from a Copilot perspective, we also have an mode where it automatically selects what model depending upon your question. So that's the orchestration model which Copilot is coming up with. And the last before point is computer using agents, where I used to call this as an RPA intelligent agent, where automate a manual process can actually consume the AI into that, so which can have a better envision of how the manual process can be automated with the help of RPA, or also have an AI capabilities inside that. And last, I mean, we also have the Work IQ, which is a combination of all the work-related mode and work-related access to all your OneDrive, SharePoint, access to the M365 platform, and also use the MCP connectors just to make it more intelligent and uh, get the content across your enterprise systems. Right. So this is what is coming up from a Microsoft perspective. This is all really cool. This is all from a which is available in the beta mode. Um, so we can actually leverage that if you have access to and get benefit out of this, right? Let me move on to the next slide. So this is the roadmap, right? This is a key important slide where I would suggest, like, what would be your next 12 months of your Copilot journey or your AI journey, right? We have split this into four different quarters here, right? We have month 1 to month 12. I would be going in detail of all these quarters as well. But if you look at the month 1 to 3 is where the foundation, right? Because as I was talking before, most of the organization doesn't have the clear foundation there, right? So we are helping organizations, right, just to have the clear foundation of AI. For example, before even you getting into buying the license or rolling out the license, right? You need to have some sort of a governance in place, right? You need a governance council with a list of team members, which you would be seeing in the upcoming slides. But there has to be a proper governance council on board. And then the data is important, right? So you have to make sure the data is intact, data is all under the protected, and then they have the DLP policies in place, and everything has to be done before even getting it to the next stage. Because we are working with a lot of different customers where they have data scattered across different places, right? I mean, they have one in H drive, one in the third-party systems and all that. So if that's going to be the case, then it's going to be really difficult to get a value realization from AI. Right. And lastly, we have the executive sponsorship from the one, we have to get a right executive sponsors and to the key leadership team just to make sure our KPIs and all our activities are tracked, just to make sure they have the visibility from their side. Right. So this is from the month 1 to 3. This is what the foundation has to be set. And once this is done and it is clearly defined, right, we will move on to the pilot phase where, that's where we'll start off with focusing how can we start using the, Copilot to each of our departments, right? For example, I would suggest pick up three simple use cases, right? You doesn't even have to go to the complex use cases, right? We can pick up a simple use case which would help a lot of business team to optimize the day-to-day office efficiency work, right? That is the way to go. Once we pick that, and also choose some of the champions. I mean, if you look at each department, right, there would be some sort of some people they might be really active in terms of using AI, and they would know a lot of things about using it. So pick up a right champion network from each department, and then set the right principles and boundaries for them to make sure they help their department internally, just to have the faster adoption. Right. So this is from a pilot stage, from month 3 to 6. And then if you move on to the next stage, right, that's the stage 3. It's the scale. How do you scale it, right? So once you have the license assigned, you have the training on board, picked up the use case, right? And third is where you would actually deploy the real agents, right? Where you can actually create agents using Copilot Studios, where you can sit with the departments and then understand the complete business process to make sure what are all the manual things they do, what are all the things which they can be utilized with the help of AI, right? How can you have the agent training to all their department users so that they can build their own agents, something like that, right? So this is all will be on the Q3, on the stage 3, where you would build all this sections over there. And at last, you would see from 9 to 12 is where you would have the complete picture of how, the foundation to scale. And then you can start off with a multi-layer orchestration where you can build agents within agents, agent talking to agents. You can have sub-agents created. All this sort of things can be done from a futuristic perspective, right? So this is how the journey looks like from the next 12 months. We have been implementing this to a lot of our customers, and they are getting benefit out of this, right? So from the next slides, we'll go ahead and see how this executes from you know Q1 to Q4. So this is the phase 1, right? So the month 1 to 3, what you have to do from a detailed perspective, right? So um, this is the 90 days roadmap, right? So if you look at it, so the governance is a pretty important structure here, right? So you have to make sure the governance team is ready to, take up some responsibilities in terms of having a better AI understanding so that they can have the organization protected with a lot of other activities. For example, if you if you have the AI governance council, right, the first point, this is what the core teams should look like, right? For example, they should have IT, security, legal, and compliance, and the business team as well, right? So all these people has to be contributing specifically on the AI side in terms of having not a better understanding of AI from a governance perspective, from a data of a company, right? So this is something very important, right? And second is run data and permissions audit, where this is something I was talking about, right? Data is very important, right? We have to make sure we run an audit among all the data, what we have, the data sources, how the departments are having data, where it is all placed, and what is the permission matrix, right? Is it pointing out to the internal systems or external systems? So all this has to be pointed out before even we jumping into, rolling out the licenses. Right. And third thing is defining the AI policy use. This is what very important topic because um, we have been getting a lot of inputs from our customers, like, our data is being exposed to a different LLMs, and then, people are using shadow AI, which is not approved by our organization. So all this sort of things will be under in place. I mean, if we don't have a structured AI policy use, so we have to define this before even getting into the stage two, right? And then at last, you set the base KPIs there, where how the adoption can be. How do you set up a dashboard for the leadership to have a visibility, like how departments are performing, things like that, right? So that is very important from a core KPI perspective. So this is the phase one. How do you start off with your journey before rolling out the Copilot, right? And if I go to the next slide, right? So this is the pilot, where you actually see how do you go ahead and broadcast this, right? So as I said, I mean, you should not pick up a lot of use cases and then try to see if you can solve all that use cases, right? So I would say pick up three use cases, maybe simple three or four use cases, and then see how it can actually benefit day-to-day life of the business users, right? I mean, it can be a very simple use case, or it can be a daily office efficiency use case, which can help a lot of team. Um, Specifically addressing the small task, right? So that's what we have been helping with a lot of our customers, right? So if you look at the point one, that's the simple use case which we can actually help. One is the email drafting. How can you use Copilot chat? How can you use Copilot inside your Outlook to better write your emails, and how can you triage them? All that things, right? And second is, I mean, there is something called facilitator. I mean, a lot of our companies actually use this in terms of having a transcription enabled, and then have a meeting notes automatically created so that all the discussion points is being captured, and then action items as can be taken from that specific transcription, right? And third is like the chat and the call summarization, similar to transcription as well. But these are all the simple things which we can actually use, and with the help of Copilot chat, you can start off with what we used to do is, rather than going to the Google Chrome, hey, start off with using Copilot chat. That would give you a even more better information than Google, right? So this is what we have been training a lot of our users to initiate their AI journey. And second is, if you look at the analysis and reporting, right? Copilot is actually helping us in a lot of our sections in Excel and Word documents, right? It can help in a lot of data analysis work. And then there's a specific agent called, specific agent which can help you for research and analytics. All that things are available from out of the box perspective. So it's always better to use that as a stage one to get a better insight, and then move on to the next stage where you can actually build some custom agents, right? So this is more from analysis and reporting. And third is, build off with a stop, very basic agents, right? Maybe an enterprise Q&A agent specifically for your department, or specifically or the folder structure, what you have, right? Or maybe a policy agent where it can actually look up for some policies, or onboarding agent. These are all the very simple agents, right? Which we can actually build within few hours, and then we can actually test and see how effective they are from a governance perspective, right? So this is how I look from a phase two perspective. How do you move from phase one to phase two? Once you have the basic knowledge, you move to the phase two, and then see how you can broadcast it to the broader audience to adopt with the small tasks, right? And then if I move on to the phase three here, right? This is where the real transformation journey is from how the Copilot moving from Copilot chat to the custom agents, right? So if you look at the left-hand side, right, I mean, I would say these are all the four layers of agent stack, right? Pick up the right use case, think of it like, it can help you on the agents and the Copilot side, whether it can be a declarative agents or a very simple agents, or it has to be done in a Copilot Studio agent, right? Define that. Third stage, make sure you have the data and governance and control, and the knowledge source has to be approved by our governance committee, right? And stage four is where you have the platform and governance as well, where the agent is being controlled, governed, and protected from our M365 ecosystem perspective. Right. And then if you look at on the right hand side, right, these are all the simple agents I would suggest starting off with when you start off with the departmental discovery, or just show them an example like how the agents would look like. Right. So first one is, of course, an IT help desk agent, which can help to triage tickets, reset our passwords, the knowledge base, all that. Second is where the HR policies, right? This would really help HR in terms of if they have a huge amount of documents year on year, this might be growing. If you have an agent specifically for extracting this information, that would be really great. And a couple of agents, if you look at this benefits agents and the PTO agents, right, onboarding checklist, all these are the basic agents which we can actually build. And third is, the sales rep agent, which can help us to, um, you know, the meeting brief, right? I mean, it can capture the action items for you, predicts the next steps, right? Build all the account intels, all the simple things which can be done with the sales prep agent. And another couple of agents from regulatory is where you can actually create a protocol with the help of AI and create an SOP with the AI. This is all the simple things which you can actually build. And from a finance perspective, as I said, we can actually use the default agent, what we have, and then see how can we automate our financial task there. So these are all the simple tasks which we can actually perform from a month 6 to 9 once we have the first two stages ready and concrete. Right. So moving on to the phase four is where we would actually start off with the digital workforce going live. Because if you look at the transformational journey, right, before month one, we just had the basic Copilot chat where we use the prompt, where we used to have extract the information, just the basic information, and then we used to have a simple agents created and the out of the box agents, right? And from there, we can actually move on to the Copilot as a workforce, right? Where you can completely build the autonomous agents. You will have the complete orchestration of end-to-end automations over there. How can an agent talk to an agent and then hand over the task internally, right? All this can be done from after month 12 once we have the concrete plan on board, so that we can start off with the advanced agent creation. Right, so this is what the phase one to phase four looks like from a transformational journey. This is what we have been implementing with a lot of our customers as well, so that they can actually see a benefit of rolling out the AI inside the organization. Right, so and if you look at all the way at the bottom, this is what I used to call this, right? I mean, how the CIO's job shift would be, right? They would be more of managing humans plus agents as well, right? That's how the organizational shift is going to be once you start adopting to this framework. Moving on to the next slide. So these are all our real numbers, right? How are we helping our customers? So if you look at the total time, we have been helped close to 3K plus hours, and the total savings were around, like, the annual cost savings is close to $100,000. And then the capacity which we see is unlocking is close to 2 FTEs hours, which we can approximately save there. And then at the bottom, you can see a couple of marketing and solution teams where they saved close to 2K hours in terms of using effectively on AI and closing up a lot of potentials there. And if you look at finally the average, what we see is close to 50 to 60%, where it can actually benefit from office efficiency work. So moving on to the next slide, just wanted to talk about, we have been working with a lot of CIOs in terms of, what the board cares about, right? I mean, if you ask me, board doesn't care about how much license you rolled out, right? How effective it is actually to each department and specifically on each users as well, right? How they are moving from an AI journey from assigning license to right now close to a year, how they moved from one journey to another journey, a complete a user journey, right? Something like that. So if you look at from that perspective, if we follow the framework which we had that for 12 months, we can definitely see an adoption, increase in adoption. Um, from more than 70%, right? For example, they would eventually start relying on AI in terms of their day-to-day work, moving from a basic job to creating an agent, right? That's the better adoption from an organization perspective and from an individual departmental perspective. Right, and board is also caring about the usage depth because there are a lot of things which we have to consider from I would say from budgeting perspective, right? Because nowadays they are all budgeting from an AI standpoint for the token values as well, because it's consuming a lot of tokens in the backend, right? So the usage depth, coming to the usage depth, right? So they're all tracking the usage depth in order to see how much it would cost from an year-on-year perspective, right? And board is also caring about the time saved, how much it is saving for the specific user as well as for the specific department as well, and how they are effectively using it, right? And they're also looking at the business outcomes, how they have for example, we have rolled out to the regulatory department, so how they are actually performing in terms of the R&D and how they are performing in terms of creating a protocols, things like that, right? There are a lot of different use cases, but they're also expecting the business outcome to be really effective after rolling out the Copilot. Right, and a couple of other things. The governance, very important topic. We have to make sure the data is all controlled because the board really cares about the data security, where the information doesn't has to go out of the organization, and the agent ROI as well. So these are all some of key topics which the board cares about um, when seeing an effective utilization of AI. Right. So moving on to the last topic. So I just wanted to quickly talk about the governance, right? So if you ask me who wins this AI race in the from an organizational point of view, right? I would say governance is key factor there, right? So companies who have better governance are the real winners, right? So if you look at the five pillars, right, I would say these are the five governance pillars which organization has to follow in order to have a safe and secure AI running inside their organization, right? So one is the identity and access control, which the data has to be really protected, and the all the information has to be some sort of a permission defined there, right? And second and third is where the data boundaries and cost control, where we have to have sensitively label to be defined, the data leak protection, all this has to be defined, and the cost has to be controlled, right? I mean, we have to track how much the cost has been utilized for each of the agents or each of the agents which we already build, so that all the cost has to be defined, right? And accountability is very important. We have to make sure all the agents which has been used has to be accounted by some sort of a mechanism so that it doesn't goes beyond the threshold limit. Right. And if you look at the fourth and fifth point, the auditability, we have to make sure an audit tracking is in place just to make sure we regularly track and monitor the agents which is performing correctly or not. And change control is very important because change control is very important topic, right? Because they are adopting to a new technology, and we have to make sure all the agents which has been reviewed first, tested, approved, and then deployed to the production, right? All this has to be in place in order to have a better governance of the agents inside the organization. Right. So I think we have moved to the end of the topic. So just the key takeaway, right? This is something which I would propose starting Monday. If you're planning to have AI rolled out to your organization, this is your 90-day plan here, right? For the next 15 days, have the executive sponsor ready, and then have the roles and responsibility defined, and then also have an AI committee as well. And next 15 to 30 days, make sure you have data is all checked, data is all protected, and then do the permission audit as well in order to have the better governance of data. And then third is where the 30 to 45 days pick up three use cases. As I said, it may not be a difficult use case. It can be a very simple use case. Pick that up, and then 45 to 60 days, just launch that, get it to the user hands, and then see how they are performing and what is their pulse is all about. And then move on to the 60 to 75 days, build a first custom agent, and then with a little bit of autonomous in place, so that the users can actually see how an actual autonomous agent can look like, and how can they solve the business problem, so that they will come up with a lot of business ideas, right, which we can help to automate. And finally, report the ROI to the board, right? So this is very important. So make sure you have a dashboard representing board, like, hey, this is what we were in the day one, and this is where in the day 90, how the adoption cycle is all about, and how users are actually using the AI agents, right? So this is how the user journey looks like if you adopt to this key framework. Um, this is the end of the slide, I guess. Yeah, there you go. So that's all I got. Let me hand it over to Revati. Just in case if you have any
Thank,
questions, feel free to put us in the chat. We can respond you back.
thank you. Thank you, Sai Charan. That was an insightful and wonderful session. We really appreciate the time, expertise, and experience you shared with us today. Thanks to all our attendees for joining us. For queries, please write to info@hexacorp.com. Please follow our LinkedIn page, and the link is mentioned in the chat. To explore our services, please visit www.hexacorp.com. Have a great day ahead. Stay tuned for the next. Thank you.
Thank you all.